Hello and welcome to another brilliant In Conversation with Brian Mofokeng, where we talk to football legend, find out what life is afterwards. But before we get there, we need to understand and celebrate and relive some of the finest moments they actually had playing the beautiful game. My guest for today is Matthew Paul Booth. You all know him as Booth. Yeah, I had to actually put the TH in there. Matthew, welcome.
Thank you for having me.
Yeah, you come up as, I saw you when you arrived, and I was like, geez, I thought I'm tall, but this guy is tall. You are now a legend in SA football. People know you, you've been a poster guy for the longest of time. But we all were introduced to you. I remember the first time I actually saw you play was 1999.
Yeah.
It was just for the qualifiers for the Olympics way back then. But let's go back. Born in Fut-Afrique.
Yeah.
Where did it all start? The Paul name. We all know Matthew Booth. We don't know the Paul part of it. Where does the Paul part come in?
It's my dad's name.
Yeah.
But also Matthew. So I think my parents probably thought that if they give me two good Christian names, then I might turn out very well. Little did they know.
All were they wrong.
But so grew up in Fut-Afrique, came from a footballing or very sporting family.
Yeah.
Mum played tennis, my dad and his brothers all played football. But when I was at school, I tried everything, cricket, rugby, you name it. Just give me a ball. And that's what I wanted.
But why football? Then you actually played rugby, rugby, you'd have actually been a very good rugby player, given, looking from from stature point of view or from how you look, probably you would have actually been able to give a few people around. Why did you choose football?
Yeah, so at primary school, they put me as a lock.
Yeah.
And then when they realized that I was the only one in the team who could kick properly, then they moved me to fly off.
Okay.
But I enjoyed the game. It was nice. The contact took some getting used to.
Yeah.
But I think that kind of helped my football, as a defender, not being afraid of contact and actually welcoming it sometimes. So that sort of sporting background, the cricket, developed me as a fairly good athlete as a whole,
Yeah.
And I think that's probably one of the best things about being brought up in Australia or South Africa, good weather. Most schools offered a variety of sport.
Yeah.
And we generate or create very good athletes.
What did you play as a cricketer? Were you a bowler, were you a batsman, or one of the best fielders? Because I was a very good fielder.
Yeah.
I could bat. I was a sixer, I was pure sixer guy.
Right.
But I could not bowl for the life of me. Where were you?
So I consider myself
all-rounder?
Yeah, I consider myself to be an all-rounder. I was probably
Maybe your friends will say, nah, never, never.
I opened the batting, and then I was probably a first change bowler. I played some decent league club cricket as well until I signed my first contract, and then I had to contract as a footballer, and then I had to make a choice. And obviously, I went with football. Having picked up interest from Cape Town Spurs when I was 17 in my last year at school. So unfortunately I had to give up cricket, which I still enjoy playing and watching.
Parents. You said your parents are sporty people, so maybe it was easy for you to convince them that you want to play football instead of going to be a doctor or a lawyer or something, or now a politician for that matter. How easy was it actually for you to maneuver and say, you know what, I've just got a professional contract, I want to play football? Or were they like, no, go and study first, you'll see that later on?
Well, my grades weren't good enough to become a lawyer or a doctor, but certainly a politician and a footballer, yes. Good.
So you had a choice there, you were sorted.
Yeah, so, politics was always an interest of mine, especially coming from growing up in a country like South Africa.
Yeah.
You can't not be.
Yeah.
But yeah, the only issue that they had was the fact that I signed my first semi-professional contract when I was still at school in doing my matric. So they were a little bit concerned about that. But I assured them that I could manage it. I will always remember the time I spent 6 months on catching 2 trains from Fishhoek to CBD Cape Town, and then from CBD Cape Town to Parow.
Yeah.
So that
Kampa village side, yeah.
so that I could train with Cape Town Spurs. And being, I always loved the travel because I knew what type of players were there at the time.
Yeah.
Ronnie Zondi, David Modise, David Inyati, Sean Bartlett. You know, to be able to get mentored by the likes of Michael Jacobs and then Ronnie Zondi, who were two completely different centre backs, and to be able to cherry pick which characteristic that I wanted was awesome.
So at the moment, probably your heart, you're in pain when you look at Cape Town Spurs, and the fact that, you know, a man you looked up to, Sean Bartlett, just lost his job because of the performance of the team overall. When you look at that and look at where you are, let's talk about Spurs first of all as a team. They always attracted very young players and brought them into the team. There is a very good formula. Do you think that is working for current football the way football is at the moment?
Well, their business profile was always to run a very good academy, knowing that they had enormous talent in that catchment area, and they made very good use of it. So it was to nurture and then to sell. Okay. And that worked for them. And then they dropped the ball a little bit and they fell into the NFD. And that developed, for 1 or 2 years, that development system was watered down. And I think that's probably the main reason why they stayed in the NFD for a good 5 years, until they rejuvenated that academy and they started to produce again. And I think that helped them certainly to get back into the PSL.
Yeah.
But they've obviously come under enormous fire in the PSL, and I don't think people have realized how much the NFD can suck the life out of you, especially if you've been there for 5 years, from a financial point of view, particularly. And the fact that they were in the playoffs meant that they had an additional 2 or 3 weeks of lack of planning, because they didn't know whether they were going to go up or not. And so it's always very difficult coming up. And they haven't been able to go into the market as much as they probably would have wanted to.
Yeah.
And the fact that Radiopani has been missing in action. Cupido, who was their go-to man last year, has lacked a bit of confidence. I think also clubs have shown interest in him, and he's taken a while to get back into the first team.
One team that you played for is not doing well. Another one. They say the sky is the limit. I think it's an understatement when it comes to them. They're doing so well in a team there. Let's talk about your transition. I mean, you moved from Spurs, you found yourself overseas, life overseas, when you had to leave South Africa and go overseas. But before we get there, there's always this nice margin that people will talk about. You coming as a student and you find yourself all of a sudden getting a salary.
Yeah.
Were you not excited? Were you not this crazy guy that just went on, splashed and went crazy? What happened? How did you manage to... Were you able to keep the money, by the way? Let's talk about that first.
Well, my first salary, if you can call it that, was probably 350 Rand. And we were,
was a lot there.
We were given it in brown envelopes. And
It's a totally different story now, brown envelopes.
Sometimes it was all in 5 Rand notes. So you often got excited thinking that they had miscounted. But yeah, it was, I think that grounded me.
Okay.
You know, so your salary improved incrementally, as it should, and with your performance. So I think that, and then by the time that I sort of finished my career, I could look back and laugh, but I think it was necessary to get rewarded in that manner, you know, in stages. Whereas sometimes a young kid could jump from earning nothing to earning 30 or 40,000 Rand, and that's not a particularly healthy scenario, even though they might deserve it.
Yeah. I had a story that your father used to keep your money. The salary was paid to him, then he used to probably give you allowances. Was it right? Or
No.
Never happened.
No.
Kept your money.
Yeah, no. I was they showed faith in me. What they did ask for was rent. So if as soon as I started to earn money, I had to contribute financially, especially if I wasn't expected to do particularly chores or anything. You know, I was quite busy last year of school, having to travel, and then my second year, my first year out of school, I started to work at a sports retail outlet, and still staying at home while playing semi-professional football as well. So I was expected to contribute to the household.
Taught very early how to manage your money. That is a very good thing. Now you move from playing in the mother city, you find yourself in the great city lights of Gauteng, Mamelodi Sundowns, but you actually went overseas first before you came back. Or was it the other way around?
No, so I spent 3 years at Sundowns.
Yeah.
Again, landing in a team that had just won 2 championships in a row.
Yeah.
Upon arrival, we won the double, so that was awesome for me.
Yeah.
Fantastic squad again. And then Victor Bondarenko organized my move to Russia. Spent 6 years in Russia and then returned to Sundowns for a further 3 years.
There was a game I covered one day, and we were talking about it with one of our colleagues as well. The game where it was at Ellis Park Stadium, and after the game ended, it was pandemonium at the stadium. And when everybody else was running out and you still have your Kabi Yellow sign going up, what are you doing there? I mean, everybody was going the other way, and then you still went to the Sundowns. What are you thinking around that time?
Look, I think it's always important to recognize the fans.
Yeah.
People underestimate the amount of resources that they put into the game. Sometimes resources that they can't really afford. You know, the effect of a fan taking 2 taxis, buying a ticket, having to pay for food, getting back home late at night, just coming to watch you for 90 minutes. I don't think players quite appreciate that aspect. And so when I walk in the mall or drive in my car and a football fan, whether they're Sundowns fan or not, want to chat about football, take a photograph or ask for an autograph, I'll do it.
Yeah.
Because I realize that very fact, you know. So we've got to appreciate that and try and encourage young kids to buy a local shirt.
Yeah.
Because ultimately that's going to improve our industry. It's going to improve players' salary and the image of the game.
Played at the highest level in South African football. 1999, playing a game for the qualifiers for the Olympics. All right. Then the first thing you're hearing in the stadium is boom around the stadium. What went through your mind then when it happened? The first time you heard it. I understand later you understood what you were saying, saying booth, but when you had the first time, what was the first reaction you had it the first time?
Yeah, I had a little smile on my face, although, you know, during the game you can't really, you tend to block out the peripheral noise, you know. You learn to take in the positive.
Yeah.
So when they cheer you, you take it in, you let it boost you, you let it give you an adrenaline rush. And vice versa, when you hear the negative, you try to drown it out as much as possible, which is very difficult to do when there's 40 or 50,000 people in the stadium. But for me, it was I got a lot of pleasure out of them choosing me, so I used it. I used it in the game. I used it to give me that adrenaline boost when I was perhaps feeling a little bit pop. You know, legs are tired. 3 o'clock kickoff. You're playing in Limpopo, you're playing in Abidjan, you know, in 35, 40 degrees heat, you use that. You learn as you progress to use every little bit that you can to boost your performance.
You go to the Olympics in 2000, find yourself playing against the Brazilians. Under 23, you managed to win against that team. Tell us about the squad that you had that year.
It was one of the few projects that SAFA have actually signed off and allowed corporate...
Amagluglu.
Amagluglu, yeah. sponsored by Sasol for the longest time. It was a long-term project. And for football administrators and politicians, that's very unusual to do.
Hence, you're sitting in that position, eh?
And that's why we had a little bit of success.
Yeah.
Was because they actually did it right. They gave us the opportunity to travel, to qualify, to be disappointed, to have success, to remain consistent under one coach. And we achieved what we achieved. Unfortunately, after the Olympics, not a lot of us then progressed to the senior team, which was probably the biggest disappointment. But the fact that we spent 6 years together, we were the first junior under 20 team to qualify for an intercontinental tournament.
Yep.
We got silver in '97 in Morocco. We then qualified for the World Cup under 20 in Malaysia in '97, and then progressed to qualifying for the Olympics, which was a fantastic journey. Traveling together as a team at that age, it strengthens you. So we produce fantastic characters, the likes of Quinton Fortune, Benny McCarthy, Siyabonga Nomvete, Darren Buckley, Jabulani Mahlangu, you name it. I mean, the list can go on and on. One of the best goalkeepers that South Africa unfortunately didn't see on a regular basis was a guy called Wayne Roberts. I think probably the only South African goalkeeper that Alex Ferguson had his eye on. Yeah. And, you know, we can talk about social ills and addiction and stuff like that. And I've seen a number of them go that way. But this particular squad was full of potential. Unfortunately, not all of us progressed to Bafana Bafana to find out what could have been.
You spoke about that. I mean, there was the 97 squad all the way to the 2000 squad. Was at the backdrop of that team that won the first AFCON in South Africa, you know, where it was just this young democracy and everybody wanted to be part of that.
Yeah.
But what do we do now when it comes to mental health? Because as a footballer, you have so much on your shoulders. Yeah. When you're doing well, we celebrate with you. We celebrate you. When things fall apart, we don't really carry you.
No.
In the media space, we are the first to lambast you of what you have done wrong and everything else. What can we do differently for the next generation to be able to survive and be able to get the best out of them going forward?
I think I wrote an open letter some years ago to SAFA suggesting the whole compulsory pension fund as a solution to the ex-player problem.
Yeah.
And I didn't receive a response from them, so I decided to put it on social media. And the biggest outpouring of sympathy and interest came from the medical fraternity, from industrial psychologists, clinical psychologists, who showed an interest in getting involved in what we were wanting to do.
Yeah.
And I think we're way behind in that regard, mental health. Generally in South Africa, I remember going into SADAG's offices to volunteer for a couple of days. And when I walked in, there were 4 little desks. And I asked the administrator, "Oh, so this is your provincial office?" And she laughed. She said, "No, this is our national office. We service the entire country out of here." So that's the entire country. So you can imagine football, the lack of respect that we give to that part of that element of football, which is so important. And we can't just introduce it at PSL level. We can't just introduce it at national team level. We've got to introduce it at a very young age.
Yeah.
So that it becomes a culture. It becomes acceptable. Because at the moment, when you talk about mental health issues, the guys think, no, this guy's a little bit loony, he's crazy. We're not going to entertain him. He's got issues.
Yeah. Yeah.
And so we've got to try to break that the stigma attached to it. Likewise with women's football.
Yeah.
We've seen what Banyana has done with very little resources, very little. Not so long ago, some years ago, when they went to camp, they got one T-shirt which they had to wash every day. We're speaking to, and this is coming from the likes of Amanda Dlamini, my ex-colleague. So this is from the horse's mouth.
Yeah, I've spent time with Banyana and actually was part of that from 2008.
Yeah.
We have followed the team. It was heartbreaking to see what they had to go through.
So if you look at what they've achieved, Brian, after going through that sort of treatment, it's quite remarkable, and so it's important for us to not only talk about professionalizing the women's game, it's about opportunity for young girls and young boys. Are we giving them opportunity? And the biggest problem with girls football is breaking the stigma that's attached to a young girl playing with boys or playing football.
Yeah.
We've got to encourage parents to allow them to play the game. And the most important, the biggest benefit of Banyana's success is exactly that now. It's becoming more acceptable for them to play the game.
Now that you have retired as Matthew Booth, you have identified all of those things. If I was sitting and I'm running a company and you were to pitch that to me, what would you say you want to do? What is it that you want to achieve from that particular space if you were to enter a space like that?
To give opportunity. And so what myself and my business partner, Bongani Ntombeni, are attempting to do through the Booth Education and Sports Africa, and my partners, my co-directors of the South African Football Legends, Brian Beloy and Stanton Frericks, is to use ex-players to reintroduce them into the game because they love giving back, to be able to give school kids an opportunity to play the game, to leave a footprint, to leave something tangible, and to do it sustainably on a regular basis. There's nothing worse, Brian, than going to a community, offering a football clinic, and the kid comes up to you and says, "Coach, when are you coming back?" So it's got to be, you go in there and you suss out the situation. You suss out the people that you're dealing with. Is it willing, or is it worthwhile coming back?
Yeah.
Are they taking you for granted or not? And to see what resources they have, and then to plan what the next step is, because it's very important to go back there and to offer sustainability, offer add-ons, so not only a football clinic, but perhaps life skills, perhaps coaching the coaches, et cetera, et cetera. There's so much that you can do. And so that's what we're attempting to push and to try get corporates on board.
Yeah.
And there's been a lot of interest in that regard. Infrastructure is another offering. I think we know the issues with infrastructure in our country. In the metros, it's pretty good. But 20 minutes outside of Johannesburg, there's very little. And then also the management capacity. It's all very well you just building the thing, offering some greenery.
Yeah.
But who's actually managing it? Is the community getting the best out of it? Is it being maintained? So you've almost got to put a separate budget aside for the management capacity of it.
When you think about this, I mean, people will always tell you that one of the reasons why corporate companies want to get involved in sport, because there's always mismanagement of funds.
Yeah.
How different will you be managing this, or is it because of the partnership that you have and understand the plight you need to deal with?
A professional proposal and transparency. This is what we're proposing. This is what you're going to get. Pre and post reports, and holding their hands and taking them along with it, and setting a good example. We don't have the best image amongst corporates. I don't think that the football industry have given corporates value for money.
Yeah.
Sometimes I get the feeling that they just sponsor the game because it's the most popular from a participation point of view, and we've got to change that perception.
Who was the most difficult player to play against, and who was your favorite, or is your favorite?
Any shorty that was quicker than me.
So nimble-footed players you don't want to play.
I hated, because they force you to be on your toes. I had to give them a bit more space.
Yeah.
I learned with age the distance to give them. I preferred playing against a Poland and Lanya, Mark Batchelor type, where there was a bit of a physical battle.
Yeah.
I enjoyed that too.
Worst game?
I think when Supersport beat us 4-1, I think I'd just come back from a long layoff. I wasn't fit.
Yeah.
And I played my first game against Free State Stars, got man of the match, but that was purely just because of adrenaline. For some reason, Henri Michel then dropped me for the next game. And then we played Supersport, who were title contenders.
Yeah.
Up against the Dane Clayt on the left-hand side, Anthony Lafort, and I was just flat. And so that gets replayed on television once in a while. So now, and then
You're going to show your kids and say, nah, it was not Danny. Danny didn't have a good day on the day.
Yes.
Yeah.
I during my career, I was pretty consistent. But of course, there will be games where you wake up on the wrong side of the bed and, you just don't feel good. And the other team is just on top of you. I mean, that's sport. But that again, any young professional coming into the game, that should drive you. Social media, everything's available on the click of a button, That should drive you to perform at training and on match day as well as you can so that you don't make mistakes. Because it will be recorded.
Your highlight where you sit back and say, that was vintage Booth on the day.
Yeah. I think I always played well against Brazil, funny enough, and I've played against them on 3 occasions.
Yeah.
And I would probably say that Olympic game in 2000 in Sydney was probably my best game. And people still, unfortunately, they still talk about it. And similarly with our squad that won the Nations Cup, they also talk about them. They still talk about them. And we should really be talking about new successes, more recent successes. And my generation is still very relevant because of that. So I would love to see a new generation come up and create their own successes that we can talk about.
I know that's what they're doing at the moment, trying to find those diamonds, rough, rare diamonds right at the bottom. We're going to be talking more with Matthew. Thank you much for coming in today. But you know what? We're going to be talking with that is part 1 of this. Part 2, we'll be talking about what he's doing at the moment, life, and all the other stuff, the great stuff we're going to talk about as far as football is concerned. It is in conversation with Brian Mofokeng. You call him Booth. I call him Matthew Paul Booth. Until again, meet again on the other side of this.